If you have tried painting trees in watercolor, you know how challenging it is to do it well. The challenge not only lies in having to translate so many details into simple, paintable forms, but also to make them look vivid and avoid overworking and having the tree looks really timid or dull. And on top of that, a lot of landscape paintings relies on the trees being identifiable species because that is what creates this sense of place, indicates the seasonality and location. Yes, it is a very difficult subject that can run deep with complexity and unique situations, but what if I tell you there is a simple way to paint vivid greeneries whenever the situation if you follow this three-step process? So today I'm going to help breaking down this three-step formula that allows anyone to be able to paint any trees vividly and loosely. This process is effective not only because of the techniques I'm going to teach you, but also it requires a few mindset shift that once you do, you'll be able to perceive the shapes and capture them more confidently. The first step is to draw out the tree forms so that we can paint it. When it comes to drawing, many people think they need to draw the trees exactly as they see in the photo or in real life. However, the main objective is often overlooked by many painters, including a lot of art tutorials, which is trees are beyond just subjects in the landscape painting. They are characters. They carry a lot of personalities, and they help convey certain mood, movement, and characteristics. And they can be utilized as a compositional device to guide the viewer's attention across the scene. So what you need to do here is first name what kind of feeling, what kind of energy and personalities you want these trees to take on in your painting, and then draw the simple shape that reflect that energy. Is it a uplifting and energetic vibe conveyed by a shape of a maple tree or a cypress tree? Or do you want it to feel majestic and grounded like a evergreen tree or an oak tree? Is the tree lanky and periwinkle like a birch, a poplar, or maybe it conveys certain mood of melancholy and have that weeping form, such as a Japanese maple and a willow? Now, many young trees tend to have just one singular canopy and has a very identifiable shape. However, older trees or multi-trunk trees may have many canopies and they're all connected through the branches. So for those trees, I recommend you also draw out within that overall shape these different clusters of canopies and then connect them with lines, basically, or stem from the bottom. And that is the universal language of trees, which is nothing more than a cluster of canopies that are all connected through the tree trunks. I guarantee you, if you just simply stick to this visual language, you can paint without photo reference. Because this visual language will ensure all the time that your tree will look like a tree, even if you don't follow exactly what you see in a photo or in a landscape. Take this photo of a windswept cypress tree on the California coast. Note that it's leaning towards right, but the overall shape is a triangle. Draw that overall shape. Then detail out individual clusters. There are roughly 3 tiers. They conform to that overall movement. Then draw out these individual tiers that almost looks like flat triangles tapered off to the right to mimic the movement and the direction of the wind. There are many small branches coming from the tree trunks. However, you don't have to draw all of them. As long as you have a trunk that connects to each tree canopy that are continuous in their direction, even in a portion where it's behind canopies. The way you paint it later is to follow the same direction and expression of this shape. We'll talk more about that in the following steps. But this is just an example that shows you how you don't have to follow the photo reference exactly. Instead, lean into the overall movement and the universal language of trees. So here we have a full forest of eucalyptus trees. But you see that you can go super loose and abstract with the shapes, but it will still look like a group of eucalyptus because there are 2 eucalyptus trees in the center that have more distinct shapes that alludes to the species. So our human brain looking at this will automatically register that the rest of the shapes are also the same species. And that is the power of the visual language. If you like to see a step-by-step breakdown of drawing and then painting these different tree species, I'll be teaching an in-depth course through my Patreon program in October, during which I would dive deeper into what forms conveys what type of mood and energy. Please visit this link for the Patreon page to learn more. Once you have drawn out the overall shapes, we can get started with the painting process. Turns out, drawing out just the base shape is really all you need. You don't have to draw a lot of details onto the canopies or even trying to find the shapes of the leaves. That is because this next step is where the personalities and the idea of different species comes in play, and that is intentional brushworks. Turns out this is really overlooked by many painters and a lot of art tutorials, because the energy of the brush marks is really key and really builds on that overall characteristic of the tree species. And so you need to emulate and amplify that energy by moving your brush in different directions and use different tension as well. The reason why for many beginners, they don't like how their trees look because it's so stiff and rigid and repetitive, and that's because the default motion of painting is simply just dabbing, going from the upper left to lower right direction, like just repeat that brush stroke all along. But in fact, you can have so many diverse brush strokes. They're so perfect for capturing these different characteristics of trees. Here are a few examples of using intentional brush marks to depict your trees. For the upright forms, like in a maple or a cypress, flick your brush upwards to create an energetic look. For a broadleaf tree, like an American oak, sycamores, and linden tree, try press down your brush and rotate it slightly to create a brush mark with a rounded top. For a skinnier version of deciduous trees, like birch, press your brush horizontally, then flick downwards to create a reverse triangle. For trees with weeping forms, such as Japanese maple, willow, dogwood, and beech trees, paint the dome shape, then flick your brush downwards in all directions to create a form of rounded top and frazzled bottom. For a coastal cypress or a palm tree, try use dabbing but in a wide range of directions to convey that horizontal shape and the relatively flat layers of canopies. And for this upcoming deep dive class, I'll also be teaching the fundamentals of paint consistency. I'll also be addressing the methodology for mixing greens that allows you the most flexibility, but also to create very diverse range of greens that will lead to a more sophisticated look for your painting. So now we're done with painting the overall shape of the tree. Let's move on to talk about how we convey further depth and dimension by using shadows. You may be wondering, where do I place the shadows and what kind of shapes do these shadows have? So the first rule is that the shadows tend to be concentrated around the bottom of the canopy. So for a single canopy tree, that will be primarily at the bottom. For a multi-canopy tree, it will be at the bottom of each canopy. The best advice here is to look to the type of brush marks you're already been using for painting that species, and then basically replicate that energy with the shadow shapes. For example, we flicked upwards to paint the shape of the maple tree. So the shadow should follow the same movement, but with a much thicker paint consistency. The spruce tree has multiple layers of canopies trailing downwards, so the shadow should be for the individual tier and concentrate at the bottom of each canopy. And if you're looking at a photo or a real-life tree, it can be helpful to first draw out the shadow shapes, which are the negative shapes between the lit part of the tree foliage. In my plein air sketching tutorial for beginners, I have a more thorough demonstration. Go check it out if you like. But basically, focus on the negative shapes that help separating either the tiers of different foliage or different clusters within a tree shape. Now, one may ask, what if I need to paint a group of trees? It is quite common to have cast shadows on a group of trees. For example, the tree that's in the back can have way more dark tones because the tree in the front casts its shadow onto it. So that is really all you need to worry about when you're painting multiple trees in a group, is to pay attention to certain areas and intentionally make them all darker, because that represents the cast shadow from the front object. Tree trunks tend to have a lot of diagonal shaped shadows cast on them. And the part where the tree trunks meet the canopy is the darkest area of the trunk, because they're usually all in full shadow. All right, there you have it. The simple 3-step process to paint any trees vividly and expressively. To recap, here are the steps. Determine the personalities of the trees you're painting and draw the overall shape to reflect that energy. Next, find out the best movement of your brush to help convey that energy or the forms of the tree. Using only one attempt, paint the tree shapes. The third and the last step is to add the shadow forms onto the tree. The shadows should concentrate around the bottom of each canopy. It can be a cast shadow if you're painting multiple trees or multiple canopies. Some canopies or trees may have a large shadow casted on them. This will help bring out the depth and dimensions further of different layers. Alright, so that is all for today's video, which is about simplifying the process of painting trees and making them look more expressive. In my next YouTube video, we're going to shift gears and look at the painting design aspect, and that is to look at different roles that greeneries can play beyond the focal subject, but instead can be used as textures, as background, as foreground, as well as compositional devices to help guide a viewer's attention across the scene. And I'll show you a different treatment that's used based on the role that the greeneries play in your painting. Again, I appreciate you guys watching this video, and please do comment and let me know if you have further feedback for me. If you would like to support my ongoing effort of creating highly accessible and free learning resources through YouTube, please consider giving me a super thanks or by becoming a Patreon member. Okay guys, I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next video.